Good afternoon, my fellow political fanatics out there. This is Conservative Pelican bringing you coverage of the 2020 Guilford County Republican Party Convention. Now, backstory on this video. I attempted to go outside on the back porch to film this video. It's a fairly nice day outside. It's sunny and 52 degrees, which here in North Carolina this time of year we call that chilly. But as the normal high should be about 60 this time of year, so a little unseasonably cool, but fairly nice. And as soon as I start rolling the camera, the neighbor's dog starts barking. And not only does the neighbor's dog start barking at me, but he's looking like right at me. I mean, he's like right as far, right on the property line between my house and the neighbor's house, just looking right at me, barking. I'm like, come on, really? Ugh. Anyway, I gotta do the next best thing and be inside and do this, because last year I made the mistake. A lot of the convention, I still have some conventions, a notebook from 2019 of some conventions I still have not done videos on. I do not want to make that same mistake again here in 2020, so I'm trying to churn out these videos as quick as I can. But I will give you the time and the credentials report on this convention. Of course, we were at the same venue that we were at last year, which is the Sears Applied Technology Sciences building on the campus of Guilford Technical Community College in Jamestown. Yeah, maybe next time I'll just say GTCC for next year, who knows. We started the convention at 9:58 a.m., 2 minutes early. Chairman Gleason is really... Personally, I'm okay with starting a little early, but if you're the type of person that's usually running a little late, well, you're probably not a big fan of Chairman Gleason, but it is what it is. Started at 9:58 a.m., and we ended the convention at 11:34 a.m., and unlike last year, there were no breaks. It was a solid hour and 36 minutes, and about an hour and 35 minutes of this convention was nothing but candidate speeches. There was very little business that we did. All the business that we did was strictly procedural and mandatory, and that's you elect delegates to go to the go to the district convention and then the state convention. And it takes just like 1 or 2 minutes to actually do the quote-unquote election, and pretty much Guilford gets, for the state convention, they get like close to 400 slots for delegates. To my knowledge, they have never filled all 400 slots. Generally, the average over the last 2 years has been about 35 to 40 delegates attend the state convention. And I will tell you credentials. This year we had 79 delegates attend the convention. That is actually down from last year. Last year we had 86 attend. But still, at least the drop-off was not as steep as New Hanover County was, because in years past, like one year we had like over 150 delegates show up, and then the next year it plunged. It was like 75. So at least we're fairly steady with the amount of delegates that showed up at the county convention. One little point of order that I had, and unfortunately I didn't realize this until just a few minutes ago. I'm recording this about 4:30 on Saturday afternoon, which is like 5 hours after the convention ended. The one little point of order I had is the there is one spot on the executive board that is currently vacant, and that is the spot of the second vice chair. Our former second vice chair, Alyssa Batts, resigned and moved to Charlotte to take a new job, and well, she met somebody, so good for her. So her and her boyfriend are hitting it off, and she's in Charlotte now. But that spot has been vacated, and yet I just remembered a few minutes ago that at a county convention, it is appropriate to elect, if you have a spot vacant on your executive board. What do I mean by executive board? Well, your chair, and again, it varies from county to county, but the Guilford County Executive Board is the chairman, the first vice chair. That's usually your fundraising person. Your second vice chair, that's usually your communication, social media person. And then your third vice chair is your precinct get out the vote chair person. And then you have your secretary, assistant secretary, treasurer, assistant treasurer, and then you have your district chairs, which the districts are made up of the, I'm going to say 9, you can have up to 9 district chairs, because there are 9, no wait, there are 8 county commission districts in Guilford County, so 8 district chairs from there. But we apparently elected to keep that spot vacant. Nobody else brought it up. I didn't bring it up because I wasn't thinking at the time. I was probably half asleep. So I stayed up way too late last night. No, I'm not a partier. I was just staying up late doing a lot of research and all the other stuff that I like to do. Starting a new college class on Monday, so Friday night we get the syllabus and all the assignments, so I start looking through that, etc., etc. Okay, so the first speaker at our convention is Supreme Court Justice Paul Newby, and Chairman Gleason allowed Justice Paul Newby to go first because he gave him professional courtesy, because there are a lot of other county conventions going on across the state this Saturday, and also the next 2 Saturdays are really heavy, and then there's like 2 or 3 on the 28th of the month. But really, the first 3 Saturdays of this month are very jam-packed full of conventions. Okay, so Justice Paul Newby, if he had some new, like, more biographical information. I've talked about him on some of my other convention videos in the past. And if you're new to this channel, just know that I do not like to repeat the same content over and over again. I like to make each video as interesting and fresh and new as I can. I do not like to repeat myself unless I'm proving a point. And there'll be a video coming up within the next couple months or so about the state convention and the RNC committee one race, where I'll actually replay part of the video that I did like 2 years ago. So anyway, Justice Paul Newby, he grew up just like a mile from where we met today, right in Jamestown. And his mother, who is 95 years old, since 1958, his mother has lived in the same house in Jamestown. And apparently it's like right between the city lake and the dam for Jamestown. But Paul Newby, he was born in 1955, so since he was 3 years old, he lived in that house till he was a grown-up. But his mother is a lifelong Republican, and his great-grandfather was a lifelong Republican too. And one of the neat things that Paul Newby shared with us today was that 30% of the first 30% of the original founding members of the Republican Party were African American. Yeah, 30%. And yet, in presidential elections of recent history, the GOP has gotten maybe 10% of the vote, of the black vote. When you look at the numbers, they say that the GOP had success with the black vote under Dwight Eisenhower, and Dwight Eisenhower got 35% of the black vote. Now, I will tell you that everything I'm reading going into the 2020 election says that Trump is really making inroads with the black vote. And everything I've read has said that he could get 35% or even 40% of the black vote. Now, back when Dr. Benjamin Carson was running for president for the 2016-2015, his campaign put out literature that says that 18% was the targeted number. Okay, but if Trump is getting double that, that would be like landslide. Like I'm talking like Reagan 1980-84 landslide. That would be huge, or as Trump would say, bigly, you know. So let's see here. But Guilford County in 2012, the last time Paul Newby ran, Supreme Court Justice in the state of North Carolina, gets 8-year term. So these judges' judicial elections are very important. You know, when you go to the polls, you have to absolutely make sure that you are, you know who you're voting for, right? I mean, it's an 8-year term. If North Carolina picks the wrong Supreme Court judge, they're stuck with them for 8 years, okay? But in 2012, Guilford County delivered 100,000 votes for Justice Paul Newby. Now, in the county, and this is most recent stats, like late 2019, it shows there are about 95,000 Republicans in Guilford County. 2019. So in 2012, Paul Newby got 100,000 votes. So that means that the Republican Party did a great job of turning out their base, but they also got some crossover votes in there as well. But in 2020, Paul Newby says his target for Guilford County is 125,000. And he says he has to be in court Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. And this weekend he has to read 6,500 pages. 6,500 pages. So his daughter Sarah is driving him around the state from convention to convention. But of course, while she is driving, Paul Newby can read his various notes and textbook and everything to get ready for trial. But still, I mean, it's reading 6,500 pages in a weekend and speaking at conventions around the state. That just should show you right there that Justice Paul Newby is a very, very hardworking man, and he absolutely deserves my support. He also deserves your support and your vote in November. Yes. And by the way, a note about the okay, so I get to the convention venue. I love this venue, by the way. There's plenty of parking, and there's plenty of seats in the auditorium to spread out. You ain't gotta worry about people sitting right next on top of you. Ugh, I hate that. Unlike Mecklenburg County. Ugh. But Yeah, I don't get Mecklenburg County. It's Charlotte, okay? The city of Charlotte, you have to have a better venue than that little shack that y'all have at the 4,000 block of Yancey Road, for crying out loud. I mean, I'm sorry, but whew, it just got fire code violation after fire code violation. I'm sorry, folks, but this is the truth. But anyway, getting to the convention site this morning. I check in with the lady. I don't know her name, but nice lady. Verified I am who I am. I paid everything. I asked her, hey, do you have a program? And she's like, no, I got nothing to hand out. But then I walk to the entrance of the auditorium down this hallway, and I see this chair. And on the chair I see a hat, and I see a bunch of little pamphlets, right? So I pick one of these up. Okay, this is the program. Now, it's not as nice as last year's. Basically, all it is, you got your who the leaders are, what the agenda looks like, and then you got your plan of organization, your convention rules. It's black and white, very plain Jane. Last year's was like a spiral notebook, and you actually had sponsors and from candidates, some businesses too. I mean, it was really well put together. A lot like the 3rd district at their convention, they'll give you a nice little program too. And then on the very back page, they got the wrong information about the district and state convention. But Chairman Gleason, though, did a good job of pointing this out in his closing thoughts. Anyway, next on the convention docket, we heard from Julie Emmons, spokesperson for Mark Walker. Mark Walker is not running for re-election. What happened was his district, it got redistricted to a much more, it went from an R plus 10 to now a D plus 10. His district, after the 2020 election, is going to be all of Guilford County, and then most of Winston-Salem, most of the Forsyth County, but most of that is very heavily dominated with Democratic voters. His district right now, until January of 2021, is like an R plus 10, and it's got the very conservative east part of Guilford County, and then it's got Randolph County into Lee County, the conservative west part of Chatham County, and Alamance County, Rockingham County, and a couple other counties I might have missed. But he decided not to run for re-election, but also let me back up a little bit. He should have run against Tom Tillis in this primary race. I don't know what the heck the man was thinking, but look, Mark, you're doing a wonderful job, okay? But I just want to, do that to your head, because you should have ran against Tillis. What are you thinking? And I'll tell you that I'm so distraught with his decision not to run against Tillis that, folks, I gotta tell you that in 2022, if he runs in the primary, if it's between him and Pat McCrory, guess what? I'm gonna vote for Pat McCrory. Yeah, it sounds crazy. Yeah, some of you probably don't like me very much after I said that, but I'm sorry. Mark Walker should have ran against Tom Tillis. Yeah. So I need to punish him for that. So I'm going to punish him by not voting for him in the primary election in 2022 for U.S. Senate. Yeah. But anyway, Julie Emmons for Mark Walker. Mark Walker has sponsored the Student Athletes Equity Act, which is going to give help student athletes be able to earn money while they're a student athlete, because a lot of student athletes, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for them to work a part-time job while they're in school, because I mean most of them are in class taking 12 15 credit hours a semester, but then they're at practice 20 hours, at least 20 hours a week on top of that, and their game schedule and everything. It's just not possible for them to earn money via a part-time job. So Mark Walker said, you know what, I'm going to introduce a Student Athletes Equity Act. That way students can get paid money, which, I mean, there's really no such thing as a rich college student, I mean, almost all students that are not student athletes work at least, a few hours a week to earn a little extra money, right? So, it makes sense. Prisons to Prosperity Act is another one he's sponsored. That one should be pretty self-explanatory. You take somebody who's messed up, served prison time, but now they need a little help getting back on their feet, in order to be productive members of society. Because if society helps them become productive members of society, then the odds are a lot greater that they're not going to go back to prison. Of course, that goes under the criminal justice reform that Donald Trump has done a really amazing job with of implementing in his administration. But also, believe it or not, Mark Walker this year won Champion of the Year from the National Negro College Fund. And that's huge. I mean, that is an award that I don't think a Republican has ever won before. And if they have, it's probably been long ago. Like, I'm talking like 50, 100 years ago. Something like that. And also, I should note that the 6th Congressional District, which is the one that I am in, I was moved from 13th to the 6th District. That one's going to have a chairman's race between Marcus Kinley and Tina Forsberg. It should be known that Julie Emmons had a good conversation with Tina Forsberg, and apparently Mrs. Forsberg has a solid plan for minority outreach, because if our congressional nominee, Lee Haywood, is going to be able to win, if he has any chance of winning, he's going to have to really reach out to the minority community in this district. Okay, next we have word from Josh Dobson, who is now the candidate for Commissioner of Labor, serving his 4th term as state legislature from the Grandfather Mountain area. His campaign strategy worked. He said he was able to run up the score in the mountain counties and then do well in the urban areas. I did not vote for Josh Dobson in the primary, but it was good to see him anyway, and I'll certainly vote for him in the general. He is going to have to address his anti Dale Folwell stance, though. That's he's really going to have to come clean and mend some fences with that, though, if he expects to win that race. Then we heard from John Hardister. Hardister, I've heard him speak a few times now. He's always good he's a big picture speaker. He's not really going to get into policy substance, but he's going to give you some big picture ideas. But anyway, his district used to be very red. Now, thanks to redistricting, it's on like the top 5 most competitive House districts in the state, for state House. But he said, look, he says it's very important that we not only keep the state legislature in Republican hands, but it's also very important that we get a supermajority too. Big reason for that is redistricting is going to happen again in 2021, and whichever party wins the legislature controls redistricting. But he said a big argument for also keeping the legislature in Republican hands is that people are moving to North Carolina, okay? And he said, why would we want to give power back to the Democrats? If people are moving here, the economy is thriving, people are moving here, but there's also a lot of companies, a lot of jobs are moving here too. And we're currently the 9th largest state by population, but we're very soon, I think, going to be the 8th most populous state. I think we're right behind Georgia, and we might pass them, but Georgia is really growing fast too, especially in the Atlanta area. And he saluted Mark Robinson, the candidate for lieutenant governor. Hardister said that Mark Robinson is the grassroots case study of how the grassroots can win elections over big money, because Mark Robinson did not run any radio ads and he did not run any TV ads either. Okay. Next we have Patrick Tillman running for school board of District 3. His district runs from the UNC Greensboro campus way out north and west to the little town Stokesdale. And should be noted that it used to be a Republican-leaning district, but now it's fastly becoming a toss-up because a lot of ethnic minorities are moving to the district, and the GOP really has to go out and outreach to the ethnic minorities. The Justin Conrad commissioner race was very close in 2018. I believe Mr. Conrad was reelected by only like 400 votes, so it was very close. But Tillman noted that the Democratic opponent that he is going up against will be, if elected, a rubber stamp for the superintendent of county schools. Okay, next we have Sebastian King. And let me say this about Sebastian King. Every single time I've heard him speak, he gets better and better. Every single time I hear him speak, I get more and more impressed with this young man. Yeah, I know I'm young too, but Sebastian's like 27 and I'm almost 34, so he's younger than me. Okay, I can say stuff like that, but very impressive young man. And look, very passionate man, and look, he'll point out some really good information. Okay, the local newspaper in Greensboro, the News and Record, or as I like to call it, the News Wrecker. They wrote an op-ed recently saying they support Medicaid expansion, but they also wrote an op-ed saying they oppose voter ID. Now here's the hypocrisy there. In order to get Medicaid benefits, you have to show a photo ID, right? It's crazy or what? Okay, but Mr. King also pointed out that Governor Cooper and current state senator Michael Garrett opposes legislation that creates jobs. So in other words, they'll oppose legislation, okay, but then the next day they'll go out to some factory opening in Alamance or Guilford County, and it's just very hypocritical of them to vote against something that creates jobs, and then the very next day go to a ribbon cutting of a new factory that's creating jobs, right? And another thing Mr. King wants to focus on is opportunity zones where we invest in low-income areas. Now, we have our buddy Lee Haywood. Lee Haywood, it's a really great story. He first got involved in politics 12 years ago. Started with the Conservatives for Guilford County group, was one of Dan Forrest's biggest allies in his race for lieutenant governor in the Republican primary and in the general. He said that they used to have strategy meetings in his living room where they pack 50 or 60 people into the living room to listen to Dan Forrest and his campaign manager Hal Weatherman speak. Lee Haywood says, look, the economy is doing good, But in the 6th congressional district, there are some pockets where unemployment is up to 15%, and he says he wants to focus on hunger, health, and housing. His opponent is Kathy Manning, who's a limousine liberal. Oh, yes. And she's a close personal friend of Nancy Pelosi. So, look, even if you're not a big Lee Haywood fan, the words close friend of Nancy Pelosi and Kathy Manning in the same sentence should scare the crap out of you to vote for Lee Haywood. And then we have Amy Gailey. I don't think she's related to Chan Gailey, the former coach of the Buffalo Bills and Dallas Cowboys and Georgia Tech. No, I don't think she's related to that Gailey. But Amy Gailey, current county commissioner over in Alamance County, running for State Senate District 24, which is eastern Guilford County and the western part of Alamance County. She told a very poignant story about her husband, who's in the military, and her then 4-year-old son, who cried out for daddy like every night. And Amy told a story about how kids and families around the world, they just don't have the same freedoms we do. And she just said, why on earth would we want to vote for candidates of a political party who want to raise taxes, take more of our paycheck, but also take away our guns, and also kill babies, right? Yeah, it is. Why, oh why? But a very good story from Amy Gailey. Then we heard from our buddy Troy Lawson, who won the District 5 County Commissioner race by the shininess of shiny of his bald head. He only won the race by like 100 votes. But he still won. I'm very happy he won because his opponent was a... okay, I won't say the 4-letter word, but Cindy Hayworth was a moderate who wants to work and is excited about working with the Democrats, okay? But anyway, Troy Lawson said that what he hears from voters in his district is education is the top issue. And Democrats only want to talk about education. That's, and they want to use this one issue to pin Republicans against the wall. And Troy Lawson says he's preparing himself. He's doing the best he can to be able to speak about education and really lead with good messaging on that. And then we heard from Chris Meadows, who's running in House 57, works in finance. That's State House 57, by the way. Works in finance, so he cares about budgets and money. His opponent is Ashton Clemens, who works as a teacher / bureaucrat in Rockingham County Public Schools. And Chris Meadows says his biggest campaign tactic in this race, and this is a pretty heavy Democrat district, but he says he's going to use the fact that Ashton Clemens voted against a state budget that had teacher pay raises, and not just teacher pay raises, also raises for bus drivers, believe it or not. So yeah, if somebody walks up to you and says, Republicans don't care about the poor, just tell them, excuse me, look at the state budget. They put in their raises for bus drivers, okay? I mean, one of the most blue-collar jobs out there is a bus driver, so come on now, really. But anyway, Ashton Clemens was a teacher who voted against her own economic interest. Also, it should note that the state currently has a $700 million surplus. Yet, everything here from the Democrats is that they want to raise taxes, which Chris Meadows pointed out it's very foolish to raise taxes. I mean, it's very foolish to raise taxes anyway, but when you have a $700 million surplus you can spend on needs, come on now. Okay, and then we heard from, I also said Chris Meadows wants to protect workers against illegal immigration. Let me tell you something. That, for me, is a huge. When I look at candidates and I hear the words protect workers against illegal immigration, that is a huge plus for me because I just, I'm so tired of weak Republicans who push amnesty, and we get these illegals in here and they're taking jobs from able-bodied people who want to work like me to better their lives. Yet, rhinos and Democrats are selling us out to illegals who want the jobs instead. So that's huge. I think just for saying that, I might give Chris Meadows a little, might write him a little check maybe for that. Well done, Chris. Well done, my friend. Then we heard from Devin King running for, he used to be a mayoral candidate, I believe, for Greensboro a few years ago, 2015, I believe. But he's running for the NC Senate 28 seat. Then we heard from Mike Causey. Well, yes, Mike Causey made an appearance, folks. Now, I will tell you, he lives in Greensboro, okay? But here's the thing. I did not vote for Mike Causey in the primary. However, I have a lot more respect for Mike Causey now that he showed up at a county convention. I have so much more respect for Mike Causey over Steve Troxler, the Republican Commissioner of Agriculture. Because Steve Troxler he also lives in Guilford County. But in my now year and a half, close to 2 years now of attending Guilford County GOP events, you know how many events Steve Troxler's been to in Guilford County? Zero. So, even though Mike Causey, there are like 10 candidate forums around the state for the primary election over the last couple months. Mike Causey went to 1 out of like 10, but still, he actually showed up to an event in my county. Steve Troxler has never done that, at least in the 2 years I've been here. Okay, Jim Davis, candidate for District 6 County Commission. That's my district, by the way. I actually voted for Jason Ewing, but Jim Davis is a nominee. I'm definitely going to support him. Just kind of introduced himself for that. Mark Robinson. Okay. If you never heard Mark Robinson speak, stop this video right now and just go to YouTube and type in Mark Robinson City Council speech, because it'll wow you. Mark Robinson is like one of the best, amazing public speakers that I've ever heard. And the interesting thing about it is, like, there's some people in politics, like, who are really good speakers, like Mike Huckabee. He used to be a Baptist preacher, so naturally he's a good speaker. Or Mark Walker used to be pastor of Lawndale Baptist Church here in Greensboro before he became a member of Congress. Preacher, a natural, gifted speaker. But the thing about Mark Robinson is that he's a factory worker. Yet, I just love how God will, like, he's amazing, right? God is amazing. Like, God will find a person wherever they're at, whatever they're doing, and he will call a person to live according to his will. And he'll find people, and he'll find their talents given by God, and he'll use a person for the greater good. And that's what I believe is what God is doing with Mark Robinson. He took Mark Robinson, a factory worker, okay? And Mark Robinson, about 2 years ago, went down to Greensboro City Council and gave an amazing, passionate speech about how Greensboro, the city council, was so stupid for trying to ban a gun show, right? An event that would create lots of money, lots of tax revenue, not just from the gun sales, but from parking, concession sales, etc., souvenirs, etc. So God would use Mark Robinson to give a passionate speech, and then the speech went viral, over like 2 million views on YouTube. And now here we are 2 years later. Mark won the lieutenant governor's seat. Didn't spend a dime on radio or TV or even social media advertising, not a dime. Wins the race outright with 32% of the vote. 30% is the threshold that you need to avoid a runoff in North Carolina. So he got 32%. He won the race by over 100,000 votes. And yet, I'm speaking very positive and passionately about Mark Robinson, and guess what? I didn't vote for him in the primary. No, my girl, Deborah Cochran, she finished, I think, 7th or 8th out of a 9-person field. But I love Mark Robinson, okay? He was in the top three of my choices, and now that he's the Republican nominee, I have absolutely no problem, no hesitation at all of, I have absolutely nothing holding me back from supporting him 100% and working my tail off to make sure he gets elected for lieutenant governor. So, and, he said, look, the will of the people is what matters. Amen. And a couple of his opponents spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars on the lieutenant governor's race. So, yet Mark Robinson beat him by spending like zero. Yeah. Except he had some money for yard signs and stuff like that, but very, very minimal expenses. And our final speaker of the evening, of the morning, I should say, was Michelle Bardsley, running for District 5 School Board. She's running on vocational training and also infrastructure changes. There are 3 high schools, Page, Grimsley, and Northern High School, that are in her district. But Page High School is the one that needs priority and needs to be rebuilt like yesterday. So she says it's important that the county commissioners and the Board of Education come together and get some sort of school bond referendum on the ballot this fall. Okay. But she said that she could have a possible opponent. Currently, signatures. See, what happens is if like Bardsley filed for school board, okay, there's no Democratic challenger, but what happened is that an unaffiliated voter went around and got signatures from people to attempt to get on the ballot. So currently the signatures are being reviewed by the Board of Elections, and if on the ballot in the fall, it would be an unaffiliated candidate, but the unaffiliated is a closet Democrat. So we hope and pray that she doesn't have an opponent, but if she does, again, I think Mrs. Bardsley would be a huge upgrade over what we have going on right now, because on the school board right now we have a 6-3 Democratic majority. If Michelle gets on there, it would go to a 5-4 majority, and then hopefully in 2022 we can win my district back. Okay, because unfortunately in 2018, Wes Horton was the Republican. He got defeated by like less than 1,000 votes against a absolutely putrid communist Democrat. Yeah, terrible. I don't even know the woman's name. It's just so, I don't want to know either who beat Wes Horton. But so if we win that seat back, then guess what? we're back to Republicans would then have a 5-4 majority on the school board in Guilford County. Well, that concludes my video on the 2020 Guilford County Republican Convention. Next on my docket is a convention next Saturday in Davison County. That's only about a 30-minute drive from Greensboro. So, if you're going to be, please try to attend that convention if you're in the area. The fee is $5, so it's very affordable. It's down, I believe, in Welcome, which is right off of, very convenient to US Highway 52. So please try and come. Anyway, for the Conservative Pelican, I'm Bobby Crawford. Bye-bye.